So, we are here with our more in-depth review session where we're going to be going over the patch notes. We get to see the exact numbers of things. And we get to, talk about how it may or may not, affect the meta that it is. So it'll be a good time. It'll be a good time. So this is Jormungandr, the World Serpent, the newest god coming to Smite. He will be added in this next patch, and let's get into this. So his passive is immovable. We're going to call him Jor. Jor is so large he cannot be affected by hard displacement. Instead, he gets dazed, which is a debuff. That is a fading slow and increases the damage he takes. So instead of being pulled in any direction, Whiplash, he can't be like Neja ulti, Poseidon Whirlpool doesn't pull him, Hades ulti doesn't pull him, Bogus Flop won't flop him. Instead, it slows him by 20% and increases the damage that he takes by 10% for 2 seconds. In other words, he has the best passive probably in Smite with those numbers. I imagine that those numbers will probably be increased at some point. Because, not getting Bacchus flopped and only taking 10% more damage, yeah, that's gonna be real strong. Venomous Haze is his one. He fires noxious spit at an area, dealing damage, creates a toxic cloud. It's a bit of a circle. Damage is 80 to 240, 40% of your magical power, plus the cloud damage per tick, which is 5 to 45 with 5% of your magical power. Slows for 15 seconds. That slow duration is 1 second every time it ticks. The cloud lasts for a total of 20 seconds with a cooldown of 16 to 12. Wow. You can have a maximum of 9 clouds out, but it's basically impossible to get that many. Some of his other abilities spawn more clouds, stuff like that. But I wouldn't really expect him to have more than 4, 5, 6 clouds out at the same time, even though you can technically have 9. At least clouds that he's really utilizing. I wouldn't expect him to have too many more than a handful. This base ability is what all of his other abilities basically work with. So, Consuming Bellow, which works off of his 2. He draws power. Wow, that's a huge damage number. Woo! Okay, we haven't seen those damage numbers yet. Now I'm the big boy damage number. He draws power from his clouds while nearby, channeling for 1.2 seconds. It's an AoE around his character. At the end, he roars, dealing damage to characters, trembling and slowing all enemy gods. 30% for 1.5 seconds. If he uses this inside of a cloud, it consumes the bellow and empowers him, which deals bonus damage and also basically spawns more clouds. Damage goes up to 360 plus 50% scaling with a bonus damage of up to 60 plus 10% magical scaling. You get a little bit of mitigation while channeling this ability. And it empowers your basic attacks. So that is a strong... Look at this giant wall of text on this one ability. This is going to be his main source of damage. And I also fairly expect... Does it show the cooldown on here? Cooldown 14 seconds. I kind of expect this ability to be maxed first. Even though this is your spam ability, I feel like the burst damage from this, people are probably going to level up first. At least when you're playing him a damage roll, like a jungler. Because your basic attack is going to be able to clear the jungle so well anyway. So... we'll see how that goes. Submerge. That's right. This is a Guardian with stealth, of course, because why wouldn't Guardians have stealth? So he submerges himself under the floor, which stealths himself. He can be hit in this stealth. It works like Ao Kuang stealth, not like Loki stealth. If you hit him, he comes out of the stealth. You can see him, but he stays submerged. And when you come out of being submerged, you knock up the people around you, and you do some damage. It's got a pretty long cooldown, though. So if you want to effectively get the stealth out of this ability, it's going to be as an initiation skill, not really a getaway skill, because if you immediately get hit, you just get popped out of stealth. So, and his ultimate World Serpent is going to be crazy. Oh my god, that's huge damage. He basically flies through the air like a dragon, and he drops down on your face like a dragon. Imagine if Ao Kuang ult could come down on you like 3 times instead of just 1 time. And it basically hops like a Ratatasker ult, and every Ratatasker jump does damage. So the submerge damage does up to 350 plus 40% scaling. The emerge/crash damage does up to 175 plus 20% magical scaling. It gets used 3 times. It gets used 3 times. You have to use the entire ulti. You cannot cancel out of it early. On the whole, not much of a defensive Guardian, very much an aggressive Guardian. So plan on seeing him in the jungle solo roles and not so much in the support role. Sorry, supports. He's, I mean, in the meta that we're in right now, he might be a super good support. But as far as like standard supports go, he would not be probably considered in that running. He definitely has a very solo lane centered kit. Got a bunch of skins. Deathbringer King Arthur. This skin is free with Twitch Prime if you've got Twitch Prime. That's coming up soon. A Neath skin because it's not a Smite patch without a Neath skin. Dragon Prince Nezha, which is pretty lame. Infinite Seer Pooch, which has a really cool card art, and the skin itself is actually kind of lame. Wolfsbane Scotty is actually pretty cool in game. Spellbound Chang'e is the winner of this patch. All the sound effects are awesome. All the spell effects are awesome. The bunny's awesome. It's all awesome. That's the best skin in this patch. And then you've got her mastery updates. Whatever. And you've got a singular, you got Jormungandr mastery skins as well as a Jormungandr recolor as well in that patch. Bada boom, cosmetics, who cares? They redid the deserter system, which is actually worth talking about. So they have lowered the penalty for dodging the first 2 times, and then all of your dodges after the first 2 times have been increased. So before, for an example, the first deserter was 30 minutes, now it's 10 minutes. But like your 4th deserter used to be 4 hours, and now it's a whole day. And if you go to that point, you just keep getting deserted for a day. So, you know, if you accidentally DC once, you're okay. If you accidentally DC 4 times, well, good luck. You're not playing Smite for the day. Go play something else. So, worth noting, but bug fixes. All right. Into the actual updates and the actual balance changes. So the totem got changed. It's actually a bug fix more than it's a change. The totem was supposed to be gaining 200 health every time it died, and instead it was like multiplying its health, which is why it was getting so tanky so fast. So now the totem will actually increase its health by 200 every time, instead of, it was like increasing by like 200, 500, like 1100. It was just like snowballing out of control on its HP increase. So there you go. It'll be easier to beat on your totem over in the solo lane. Now into the first big change that I love, that junglers are going to hate. Decrease speed buff from 10% to 5%. Thank the Lord. So speed buff now only gives 5% bonus movement speed. Plus, of course, it still gives the bonus 6% movement speed after you kill 3 minions in the jungle. You know, you get the 2% bonus for each minion kill, but you're only going to get that 5% movement speed now from the speed buff, which will hopefully prevent some of the particularly early jungle ganks. That 5% movement speed, though, is getting added to something else, which we're about to talk about right now, Assassin's Blessing. So Assassin's Blessing is receiving a buff nerf in that the 5% movement speed has been added to the blessed evolution form of Assassin's Blessing. So instead of getting 10 penetration now with Assassin's Blessing, when it evolves, you get 5 pen and 5 movement speed instead of 10 pen. So that's where you get your 5% movement speed back on jungles, but it's not until it evolves, which means it's way later in the game. So there you go, junglers. That's the way it's going to be. So less movement speed for speed buff. Thank the Lord. God, speed buff was so strong for so long. Okay. The rest of this patch is dedicated to tanks and making tanks stronger and making not tanks less strong. So here we go. Celestian Legia Helm, a very commonly bought mage item. For tankiness is being nerfed. They are going ahead and increasing the gold by 100 and decreasing the physical protections you get per stack by 3. Basically, they don't want, every mage in the game going solo lane and then grabbing Celestian Legion Helm. So now it's getting nerfed. It's still going to be an okay item, but I expect to see a very, 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 very heavy drop-off on its purchase rate. Elixir of Speed getting a huge buff that's making it very interesting, decreasing the cost from 2,000 to 1,500. So this is going to make Elixir of Speed way more viable. It may even make it so viable to the point of possibly being able to mix up builds and get an early Elixir of Speed. Instead of maybe getting boots, maybe you get a non-boot side. Like for somebody like Bakasura, right? Maybe you just go like a triple blade build and then you grab the Elixir of Speed instead of ever grabbing boots. Those kinds of things may be possible. But don't expect to see people buying like level 1 Elixir of Speed. That's not going to happen. But it is definitely more viable to get before a 6-slot item, and it's also a lot easier now as a 6-slot to buy Elixir of Speed, which is nice. Spear of the Magus receiving a huge nerf. I'm not sure why. Increasing the gold cost by 150 and decreasing the pen by 5. In my mind, this just makes Obshart way more attractive than Spear of the Magus on basically everybody in Smite. So I'm not 100% sure why it got nerfed so hard, but I expect to see a lot more Obshards out on the map. Also, this change, I think, is going to be pretty nice going into this. You'll see a little theme here with tanks getting a little bit of love. Speaking of items getting nerfed with penetration, you're getting Voidstone nerfed. Another 100 gold increase to this item and a reduced or a pen of 5. So just taking a little bit more penetration out of the game. A little bit of pen off of Spear. A little bit of pen off of Voidstone. Generically taking away these mage penetration options. So now onward to the God Balance. That was all of the item changes. Onward to the God Balance. We have got Achilles getting a small buff. We're going to see a lot of small buffs here to a lot of warriors. Radiant Glory increasing the heal from 23 to 35 to 24 to 40. So increasing it by 1 at every level. If you like Achilles right now, you'll still like Achilles after it. If you don't, you still won't. Basically not that big of a deal. Speaking of another not that big of a deal buff, Bologna getting Master of War, increased protections from 4 protections per stack to 5 protections still per stack. That is her passive, which stacks up to 5 times, I want to say, which means that that's technically a 5 protection increase. If you have all your stacks, it might stack 6 times, it might stack 4 times. But basically, it's basically a give or take 5 protection buff. Once you have all the stacks, you're required to auto to get those stacks. Bologna's still not going to be super in the meta compared to, some of the other characters. Still not quite going to be super meta. Cucullin getting one of the weirder changes I've seen in a while. In Smite, particularly this first one. Increase base HP by 5. Increase basic attack power by 1. Sick buff. But he also gets a little bit of love on his health conversion. Berserk, part of his passive, increases the conversion from 15% of mana to 20% of mana. This seems to be a little bit of a helpful hand to Ku to maybe be able to buy more items like Blackthorn Hammer, which gives you mana on top of it, so converting more of that mana back into health. Stuff like that. So we'll see how that goes. Also to be noted with Cucullin, you can no longer beat on the totem. when the totem is not alive. So Cuchulainn can't build up his rage anymore on the totem in between waves. They removed that feature, so no healing up with Berserker Shield, stuff like that on the totem. Can't do it anymore. Fafnir getting a pretty decent buff. They're increasing his damage on his hammer, particularly at level 1. Instead of being 80 to 260, it is now 100 to 260. It's going to help Fafnir with his wave clear. He struggles so much at level 1. For anybody that has played the dual lane in the last, 5 months, you know that meta right now, dual lane, is get level 1 pressure. If you don't get level 1 pressure, you don't have pressure for like 20 minutes because of the nature of getting the wave means getting their purple buff, means getting your purple buff, means getting level 2 faster, 3 faster, 4 faster, 5 faster, means getting kills, etc., etc. So trying to bring Fafnir back into the meta by giving him just a little bit more lane clear. Okay. The biggest god change of this patch goes to FREYA. There's going to be a whole lot of text here, not important to us. Let's go look at what's actually happening down here. So, first of all, her passive decreased the self-heal on hit from 2% to 1.5%, so that's a bit of a nerf. Another quick little thing, Aurora Blade, they reduced the mana cost from 20 to 40 to 14 to 30. Now, the big change is Northern Lights. That is Freya's, 1? They're changing Northern Lights again. They're changing it again. So right now, it's one big burst shot of blam to your face hole, okay? They're changing it. They are now making it 5 shots of Northern Lights instead of 1 shot, okay? And each basic attack will consume a charge, even if that basic attack doesn't hit anything, okay? So if you miss it, you lose it. Think of it like, this is basically Medusa's 1, okay? Think of it like Medusa 1. Damage decreased from 40 to 200 to 11 to 75, okay? But keep in mind, all of these numbers are times 5. Damage scaling decreased from 40% damage scaling to 10%, and the slow duration reduced from 2 seconds to 1.25 seconds, okay? Charges last indefinitely. The ability goes on cooldown when all are consumed. So, in theory, while Freya has lost a lot of burst damage, she's actually gaining sustained damage. So right now at max level, it does 200 base. Max level base, if you were to hit all of your autos now, is going to be 75 times 5, which is, 375? Is that math? 75, 150? Yeah, there you go. Scaling is now going to be 50% instead of 40% if you hit all the autos. And the slow duration now lasts up to, technically, if you were to perfectly time the slow out, up to 6 seconds, probably more realistically like 5 seconds if you hit them all. So she has lost a significant amount of burst damage. You are required to hit these autos or you lose them, but she gained a lot of sustained damage if you simply hit your autos, don't miss them. I'm also worried about how this is going to interact with the wave in her too. I think that this is just going to make her wave clear absolutely crazy in terms of poke, because you're just going to be able to like poke the enemy through the wave and slow them the entire time. We'll see how it goes, but I think that this is going to end up... It's hard to tell with changes like this, but it seems to me like this is going to end up being a low-level nerf, high-level buff, right? Harder to hit more autos. You can't just like hit one big auto off a whoop, but like high-level players aren't really going to miss to begin with, so we'll see how it ends up, but I can't imagine that high-level players aren't pumped about this change, so... Hachiman getting a little small buff, once again in the section of Wave Clear, just giving him 10 damage on his banner at all ranks. Just like, hey Hachi, have a little bit more Wave Clear level 1, my friend. Congrats, Hachi. If you like Hachi right now, congratulations. This isn't gonna, 10 damage isn't gonna be enough to impact like his craziness. Hercules getting a respectable change. Mitigate Wounds is now going to give him 10 more protections at each rank, which is actually pretty decent when you consider 1 point in this ability now gives you 20 protections instead of 10 protections, basically doubling the amount of protections it gives you at level 1. And considering most people keep only 1 point into this ability for quite a while, makes you a decent bit tankier. I mean, 10 protections in the earlier stages of the game is not bad. The weirdest and strangest nerf hammer to me is coming hardcore onto Odin this patch. And they are nerfing his ultimate, and probably not the way that you thought they would. They're removing the attack speed slow on enemies in the area completely. So it no longer slows your attack speed at all inside the cage. We had some people bring up that pretty sure the only thing that Odin ulti does when you put points into it is increase the attack speed slow, which means that Odin's ultimate theoretically now does not increase at all with any points put into it. So unless they have some sort of different scaling on it, it's basically useless to level up. So we'll see if anything changes on the level up on it because of this. But otherwise, it's like level your 1 and your 2. Level your 1 and your 2 and your 3. And then just get 1 point in that sick ulti. So, sorry, Odin. Sobek getting a really nice buff to his early game, actually. Increased HP per level from 81 to 86. So Sobek will have an extra 100 HP by the time he reaches level 20. But more importantly, Blessing of the Nile, which is Sobek's passive, which stacks 3 times, increases protections per stack from 7 to 10. So instead of getting 21 total protections, you will now get 30 total protections. And a 9 protection buff in the early stages of the game is like super nice. So a little bit of extra HP at the early game. I mean, like little bit of HP. But more importantly, 9 protections. So good for you, Sobek. So we'll see if we see him back at all in the solo lane support roles. Sylvana is getting a nice, kind of weird, but a nice buff. Increase the projectile speed on wisps, so it reaches your target faster. Okay? And they now apply 1 additional tick than they used to, and that tick is applied immediately. So the second wisps hit your target, whether damage or healing, it will immediately apply 1 tick of heal or 1 tick of damage, and then it's normal wisps right after that. So 1 extra tick added to wisp, and it's just an instant tick the second it reaches your target, just to try to make it feel a little bit better. Don't imagine this is going to change too much about Sylvanas, but it's kind of a feels good. Now, we had an unneeded, in my opinion, nerf with Odin, and we have a very unneeded buff with Tyr. Tyr is getting a protection increase. Increases base physical protections from 15 to 18. And they're changing power cleave to increase the healing from 25 to 105 to 30 to 130. An extra 5 on top of each level, so 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, all the way at the end. Really increasing that heal on Tyr. Obviously, this stacks on multiple minions, so you have to factor that in. So you're getting that increased heal buff, per minion that it's hitting on. So quite actually a large buff there for Tyr's healing department. On top of, obviously, warriors coming back into the meta with changes. On top of hammers being in the meta for builds and shields. On top of some of the tanky mage items getting nerfed. Meaning that even now the tanky physical items are even better in comparison. Expect to see a lot of tanky physical characters in the meta basically right now. But also especially after this patch goes live. Vamana, you guys are all waiting for it. They're nerfing Vamana. Are you guys ready? He can once again be blocked by player character models. Not deployables. Not Ymir Wall. Not Odin Wall. But if you would like to stand in front of Vamana and tank his AoE autos to the dome, he has to walk around you. Grats. That's it. That's all they changed. That was it. That was it. And that is the entirety of the patch notes, friends. Takeaways from this patch notes. Tier buff is huge. What else was huge? Oda nerf is big. FREYA change was huge. We'll see if it ends up being more of a buff or a nerf. I'm leaning into kind of buff, but we will see. Mage item nerfs were pretty big deal. Basically all mage item nerfs. Celestian Legion Helm, mage item. Spear of Magus, mage item. Voidstone, mage item. All mage item nerfs. Elixir of Speed will be very interesting. Like I said, please don't buy this at level 1. I know you'll be able to afford it. Do not buy it. That is not the intention of this change. But it does mean that you can maybe get it before you're 6 slotted if you did some sort of weird build. And more importantly, it means at the end of the game, once you've got your 6, your full build, you can basically sell boots and get this at a much better price ratio than currently for getting that 6 slot item online. And Assassin's Blessing, speed buff. So for those assassins out there, for all my junglers, you're going to be a little bit less speedy. Your level 1/2 ganks are going to be way less effective. And hopefully that allows the duo lane to just live a little bit more through y'all's absolute nonsense ganks. And that's that.